Hello and welcome to News Express, exclusively brought to you by Business AM, Nigeria's fastest growing financial and business newspaper. Of course, as always, we'll be taking a look at headlines on here from this week. And now top in the front page, we have $50 trillion question. Emerging markets at risk as UN SDGs face critical investment shortfall. And below that headline there, Nigeria faces mixed bag of global macro trends in 2021. That one's coming from KPMG, talking about the report, of course, coming on the back of all of the uncertainty surrounding the economy in the wake of the recession. And over to page 4 of the paper. Yes, Supreme Court affirms reverse purchase of Shell's assets in OML 11, Kidney Island. You can also check out the finance and investment page on page 10. Nigeria back in recession. All right, moving on to page 30, where I have this one. Dangote in Dorama off AFDB loan. This one's talking about the $25 billion endorsed by the AFDB to be invested in financing agricultural projects in Nigeria and, of course, other African countries. All right, it's now time for me to bring in Mr. Philip Isakwa to join me for conversations. Mr. Philip is the publisher, Business AM. Good morning, Mr. Philip. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much. It's the end of the month. I'm sure the banks are closing their books right now for the month. And,
you can say that.
Need to know what's going on in the economy.
You can say that again. Now, I'd like for us to start our conversation, particularly with the NBS report sitting on the commodities and agricultural segment of Business AM, talking about an upscale in food cash crop production through large-scale irrigation farming. Of course, as a means to, cushion the agonizing effects of the recession. And now, Mr. Philip, it's no news that Nigeria's agri sector has over the years played a major role as the mainstay of the economy with, renewed vigor by the federal government towards backward integration in a bid to ensure that agricultural output is enough to actually sustain the country. But then again, we've seen analysts, coming out to make several calls to the government to provide sustainable policies that, according to them, will ensure that more Nigerians, particularly the Nigerian youths, are productively involved in agriculture. The question now still remains, what strategies can the government adopt to ensure that youths utilize technology, like this one that we have here on the paper, to boost their Greek value chain?
Yes, thank you for that wonderful question. And Greek remains a major topic for whenever you're discussing the Nigerian economy.
True.
And that's because Greek stands for two things. One is its ability to produce food. We humans will need food to keep going. And then on the other hand is the fact that it produces raw materials, for industrial activities. There's a lot of agri produce that you can feed into manufacturing. That will enable manufacturing to thrive. There are so many things that are imported, so many raw materials that are imported that agriculture can help to provide in this country. And so we have had different waves of in terms of our involvement in agri production. Before independence, when agri was a top-notch part of the economy, and perhaps after independence and before crude oil began to be the mainstay, agri was there in terms of whether you talk about cocoa, you talk about palm oil and palm kernel, and you talk about rubber. All that went away when we had crude oil. And again, I keep saying that whenever things are easier for Nigeria generally, as a country, we tend to gravitate towards easier ways of doing things, And some time ago that oil is in the ground people come, Western people come into the country, people with the technology, they come, they bring out we are watching them do that, and then this is sold in the international market, we get dollars and everybody's happy. But agriculture requires real work, real hard work, and perhaps that's why it is very challenging. I don't know how government can break out of the circle, but agriculture has improved. Generally, things have improved in the world in terms of how things are done. Technology has come to play a major role in agriculture. Now, if you want to look at the pre-independence era and immediately after independence, how agri contributed, that was really hard work in terms of not having the technology to be fully involved in it, but we still were able to do well. Now you have technology that can make things a lot easier. Take technology, take drones, for instance. Drones are involved in terms of planting. Drones are involved in terms of, there's some harvesting that can be done with technological equipment. So now it is about how strategically government can look at the big picture of agriculture. It's for agriculture not to be looked at as just that activity that produces food, and again that's why business AM focuses on you can see we call it commodities and agriculture, because we don't want agriculture to just be seen as a food production activity. It produces food, but it produces commodities that are sold internationally, and that's why we're thinking if you were to address recession and you focused on agriculture, you could perhaps begin to change the dynamics of what we go through whenever you have oil prices crashing. Because you can export, you can use the produce from agriculture in your manufacturing and in your industrial base. So you can see a lot of activities. So it produces food for you, it produces exports commodities if you want to export the commodities, and then it produces raw materials for your manufacturing and for your industry. So you can see how a lot of savings can be made in terms of forex, and how we can keep a lot of gains in. So but it's now left for the government to address this differently. When we say is the environment, for investors to come in, we really mean is the environment, so that investors do not see obstacles. You have to do what you need to do, right? The story talks about large-scale irrigation farming, and the data we have picked up for this story, talked about how there are vast water bodies, across the country. If you look at the talk about irrigation, the Ministry of the Water Resources, that has been involved in damming the countries in terms of irrigation farming, concentrate more or less on one part of the country, but if you are looking to really be energetic about it, then you should be looking across the entire Nigerian Federation, because there are water bodies across the different parts of the country. You have the river basin. We've had river basins authorities for decades. We have river basins across. Whether up in the north you have the Benin River Basin, you have, and then you have some maybe in the south. And now all these years we haven't had a scientific way of looking at the management of water resources. So it is the science that needs to come in. If you look at the debate that is going on in the U.S. right now with relation to COVID, the debate on one side talks about let science lead the way, right? And then you have people who say the current United States President Donald Trump, it does not seem to support science leading the way, and as a result of that, they've had a lot of issues with COVID-19 in terms of its management. The same thing you can look at agriculture in Nigeria. Agriculture needs to be looked at differently. It needs to be looked at scientifically, because science makes a lot of things easier, and the attitude of government has to change, from the old ways of doing things to the new modern approach, and that's how you will attract young people into farming. Excuse the language, but they tell you to sometimes to make farming sexy for the young people to come in.
You're right.
So you need to do that. You need to transit from a mindset, that is old.
Yes.
I mean, generational, to new generation way of looking at things. Agriculture can, you see, the number of people, if you go to some countries, say Israel, for instance, Israel is a small country, but the number of people involved in agriculture is even smaller, but they feed and they export.
Right.
We have here in our country, we talk about agriculture being the highest employer of labor, if you really looked at it, yet it's not able to feed us.
Right.
And that's because the way the approaches to agriculture, are mundane, they are old, and they are not scientific. It's about the government opening up its mind and allowing fresh air to come in. The government needs to approach these issues with an open-mindedness.
Yes,
so that fresh ideas can come in.
True.
We don't need. I mean, they talk for a long time. They talk about what's it called, yield per hectare or yield per, in terms of the variety of crops that can be produced.
Right.
There are scientific ways of seedlings. That when you plant for a smaller portion of land produces more than you have hectares and hectares, But with regards to irrigation, here we talk about the idea is to see how a scientific way of irrigation can be introduced so that it is done in a large scale, not one man, one parcel of land, one man, one parcel of land, every man to himself, and nobody for all of us, So the scientific way of doing that will allow this to happen. So they talk about large-scale irrigation in the sense that government needs to come in, and think big. The other thing is about the government to stop thinking small. You must think big because you have a huge population. The population is over 200 million people by data, and you need to feed these people, and you need to clothe these people. Of course, cotton. Cotton farming is there. There's a lot that needs to be done. And they need to connect agriculture with industry. How can you produce, allow your agriculture to produce, for the industries that you have. Once we had one cocoa industry. I mean, there was a company that went into cocoa processing. And then the company ran into serious trouble, and I think it's still in that it hasn't gotten out of that. And government is just aloof. It doesn't care about that. You have one cocoa processing company in the country, and you cannot intervene to find out what needs to be done. For that processing factory to be working. So there's so much to talk about.
I tell you, I mean, if you walked into a classroom right now and you asked 10 children what they wanted to be in future, hardly would you hear any of them say they want to be a farmer, because, that space has not been really painted in, a very attractive light, just yet. And we cannot, talk about agriculture without mentioning poultry farming, which we see on page 25 of Business AM right now, talking about the challenges poultry farmers are facing at the moment. And the headline there says, Nigeria poultry industry faces January 2021 collapse. Farmers won. Readers can check that one out on pages 24 and 25 of Business AM. So let's move right into the market now. Last week, it was more of a stable week for the market. We saw some movement and gains here and there. Of course, readers can catch the numbers from last week on pages 12 of the paper. Well, today, the market started off on a positive note. It gained about 0.55%. Take us through the major market drivers today, and what direction do you think the market will take for the rest of the week?
Well, the market has been attractive because the other end of the financial market has been less attractive. I talk about the yields in the money market. You know, interest rates we were afraid at some point that they were going to go negative. You know, at some point you had yields on treasury bills at 1% or in some cases less than 1%. You know, and government has tried as much as possible to almost foreclose its involvement in that space. You know, especially with the monetary authorities starting with the exclusion of I think Nigerians, you know, individuals from participating. I'm not too sure whether I'm getting that correctly, but there was an exclusion of certain categories of people, you know, from participation, you know, and but the yield market has been non-attractive, so to speak. So attention has been on the equities market. Now, what has also happened in the last few weeks or so, maybe a couple of weeks or so, is that the earnings season came in. You know, banks made their third quarter or 9 months releases, and this was an attraction for investors, you know, to put in some money. So you had a good deal of activities taking place in that market, you know. Last week, after a number of issues with the market, we had you know, again we had a bullish momentum. You know, we thought that GDP numbers were going to affect the market, you know, but the negative GDP numbers did not. You know, instead the market remained bullish. You know, again we have seen it. That trend has started again. You know, again you have people who are taking profits, and this week analysts are saying that that profit-taking mentality will continue. You know, what we have seen today is that we have seen five equities gaining. Airtel gaining the maximum 10% in terms of price. We have MTN Nigeria gaining 0.1% in terms of price movement. We have ICO, the insurance company, gaining maximum 10%, which is allowed. You have Union Bank gaining 1.82%. We have FCMB gaining 2.46%. You know, the trend will continue. We'll continue to see some activities, a lot of activities in that sector, because investors are looking for where, you know, as the year comes to an end, they look for where to make some money, and if that's the window that is dead for that to happen, they will definitely, that will continue to be the attraction, you know, for the time being, because treasury bills are really doing fantastically. The yields are really, really low.
That's, you know, right.
For those that made the decliners in terms of price, will have guaranteed trust dropping, losing about 5%. Boa Cement 1,042.14 points. We had deals, 5,267 deals in total. The volume of deals, 415 million, 531,476. In terms of volume, the value of what was the trading that was done today is 4 billion 897,914,189.66. The market cap is in trillion, which is beautiful. The bond market cap on 17 trillion. The ETF cap we have 23 billion as well. The market has been good today. We believe that the week is going to be one where you see investors trying to take profit, like we said earlier. Other analysts think that it will remain the bullish markets, but we'll wait to see exactly how that plays out overall at the end of the week.
Right, we do hope the bullish run continues up until tomorrow and the rest of the week. Thank you so much, Mr. Philip Isakwa, for doing this with me today.
Thank you very much.
Philip Isakwa is the publisher, Business AM, Nigeria's fastest growing financial and business newspaper. And that's it on the analysis. Do join us again tomorrow. But until then, you can connect with us across all social media platforms on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. It's Africa Business Radio. On Twitter, at Africa Biz Radio.